Before you dive into this heart-stopping story of betrayal, revenge, and justice on the farmland, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss stories that shake your emotions and keep you hooked until the very last word, because what you're about to read will leave you breathless. The quiet hum of cicadas filled the summer air, and the fields stretched endlessly under the blistering sun, a kingdom of golden wheat that had been carefully nurtured season after season, but no one in the small town ever guessed that the silent, plain-looking farm girl walking those dusty roads with her straw hat pulled low over her brow was the true owner of all that sprawling land, for she dressed in hand-me-downs and kept her head lowered, avoiding attention, her hair a long cascade of chestnut that often hid her pale face, and her silence made her the perfect target for cruelty, the perfect prey for those who mistook meekness for weakness, and the bullies at her school, spoiled children of farm laborers, never imagined that their laughter and taunts were directed at the very girl whose signature on a deed could end their family's livelihoods overnight. Yet destiny works with irony sharper than a scythe, and it all began on one fateful afternoon when the gang cornered her in the barn behind the school, taunting her with jeers of "mute mouse" and "scarecrow," holding her down as she struggled silently, her eyes wide with fear and rage as the buzzing sound of clippers filled the air, strands of her long hair tumbling to the ground like fallen leaves, each lock cutting away years of hidden pride, and when they finished, they laughed cruelly, leaving her humiliated and bareheaded, her scalp burning not just from the blades but from the sting of betrayal, for she had once helped those same bullies with lunches, water, and kindness when no one else would, but kindness is often mistaken for weakness, and they strutted away thinking they had broken her spirit, not knowing they had just signed their own downfall, because that night, under the dim lantern light of her farmhouse, she stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror, her scalp raw, her hair gone, her tears drying into cold determination, and she whispered to herself, "No more," unlocking the leather-bound chest that her late grandfather had left her. Inside it the deeds to acres upon acres of farmland, contracts signed by every family who worked those fields, including the parents of her tormentors, their livelihoods tethered to her ink, and she realized the power she had kept hidden all this time. The power she had avoided because she longed only for peace, but peace had been stripped from her with every lock of hair that fell to the barn floor, and so she began plotting a revenge so poetic that even the land itself seemed to whisper its approval in the rustle of wheat, and as the bullies slept comfortably, unaware of the storm that brewed, she sat writing letters to banks, lawyers, and town officials, setting into motion a chain of events that would shake the community to its roots, and the next day, when the bullies laughed at her bald head in the classroom, she met their mockery with a chilling smile that unsettled them, for they had expected shame, not fire, and when the principal called her into the office, she produced documents proving she owned the very land the school stood on, a revelation that spread like wildfire across the town, turning whispers into gasps, and the bullies, parents, who worked her fields from dawn to dusk, suddenly realized their children had attacked not a powerless girl, but the one person who could strip them of everything, and panic set in. But she was not quick to destroy. No, she wanted them to feel the weight of dread. So she waited, silent, as their arrogance began to crack, and days later, when harvest season approached, she sent notices demanding new terms for work. Harsher hours, stricter quotas, higher rents on the farmhouses. Terms that made the bullies' families beg on their knees, and when the parents confronted their children, beatings and tears followed, the town erupting in shame and chaos. And still she did not smile, for her revenge was not yet complete, until one by one, the bullies were forced to labor alongside their parents in the scorching fields, their soft hands blistering, their backs aching, and she would pass by, bald head shining in the sun, a silent queen walking among broken peasants, and the sight burned them more than the sun ever could. Yet just as they thought they had seen the worst, she arranged a gathering in the town square, summoning every family tied to her land. And standing on the stage with her head uncovered, she declared her truth, her voice ringing out strong for the first time, telling the crowd of the humiliation she suffered, the cruelty that stole her hair, and the silence she endured for years, and she held up the deeds as proof of her power, the crowd falling into stunned silence, the bullies trembling at her feet, and she said, "You thought my silence meant weakness, but it was patience, and patience has an end." Before tearing up one deed dramatically and announcing that one family would be freed from their debts forever, but only one, chosen not by her, but by the honesty of the bullies themselves, and she demanded they confess publicly who had started the cruelty, who had laughed the loudest, who had pressed the clippers to her head, and the crowd gasped as the bullies turned on each other, friendships shattering as confessions spilled, betrayals cutting deeper than any blade, and by the end, their unity was destroyed, their reputations shattered, while she stood taller than ever, her lack of hair no longer a shame but a crown of resilience, and in the weeks that followed, as the bullies' families struggled under her new rules, the girl found herself no longer invisible, but a symbol of strength to others who had suffered in silence, and when she planted new seeds that season, she did so with the certainty that she was not just cultivating crops, but cultivating power, respect, and fear, and though the bullies once dreamed of her defeat, now they could not escape the truth that every bite of bread, every drop of milk, every harvest that fed their families came from her land, her hands, her will, and they were forever bound to the girl they had tried to break, the farm girl who rose from humiliation to dominance, bald but unbowed, quiet but never again silenced, and though she granted mercy to some, the lesson remained etched into the soil. Never mistake kindness for weakness, never mock silence, for silence is where storms are born, and when storms come, they wash away everything in their path, leaving only those strong enough to stand against the wind, and she was that storm, her vengeance complete, her crown invisible yet undeniable, the farm girl who taught an entire town that power often hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to rise, and as she walked the fields at dusk, the golden wheat brushing against her fingertips, she whispered a promise to the land and to herself that she would never again bow her head, never again let cruelty define her, for she was no longer the quiet farm girl. They had made her into something greater, something unshakable, and she would carry that truth for the rest of her days, a living legend among the fields.